God, Allah, Buddha, whoever you believe in, said that we should be here on earth, that means we're supposed to be here. No one is here because they're not supposed to be. So therefore, give them that respect, because you never know when you may be in that situation. You looked at a little because of who you are. So, we plan to do this,
What's up? Who's ever watching, can you hear me? Just want to make sure you can actually hear me. If you can hear me, type something in the chat. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? If you can hear me in the chat, type something. I'm about to start this ADOS presentation. So if anybody can hear me, say something. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? If you can hear me in the chat. Okay, Mitzi's on YouTube says she can hear me loud and clear. All right, Emil Christopher Smith, you can hear me loud and clear. Good, good, good. All right, so share the live, guys. I'm going to share it in a few places here, and I'll start with the presentation in about 4:10. So give it about 5 to 7 minutes. But in the meantime, share the live, and invite folk. Like if you're watching it on Facebook, invite folks on your timeline. Not on your timeline, but go to down near the bottom. We'll just invite folks that are your friends, actually. And we want them to hear the presentation. So we do this every week. And I do them every week. And we're working on getting other people in ADOS Chicago to do them every week, or to interchange with myself. So pretty soon, it'll be other people and other personalities that you'll be able to hear do the ADOS Chicago presentation, and they'll be able to add their own flavor and their own styles to them. So stay tuned. I know you don't want to hear me all the time do it, but again, we're working on that. So probably next month we'll have some new folks to do the actual ADOS presentation. So hang in there with us, and feel free to ask questions. Like I said, we're going to get started here at 4:10. So if you need to ask some questions now, while I'm here waiting on folks to come in live, go ahead and ask questions. Ask away. Ask away. And how is everybody doing? I hope you guys had a great Sunday. We had a really good Sunday. If you don't know, I'm a member of Chatham Avalon United Church of Christ, and that's an ADOS church now. What I mean by that is on the front of our church, we actually have a sign that says Reparations Now, ADOS. And that's on the very front of our building. And my pastor is 100% in favor of, hey, what's up, Amara? You like my shirt? It's my old Chicago flag shirt. But my pastor is 100% in favor of reparations in ADOS, so we put the sign on the church. And this coming month, the first Sunday in October, all the way through the month of October, we're going to be preaching reparations sermons. We're going to be preaching reparations sermons. So we're deeming October Reparations Month. And I think I may preach a sermon that month too, the next month. So probably like the last sermon or the sermon before last. It depends on what my pastor want to do, but I may end up preaching a sermon too. So y'all might get to hear me speak in a church setting for the first time. So look out for the service for next month. And we're going to start in 5 minutes, guys. And look, I'm looking at my phone on my Facebook page, and I see closed caption. Do you guys are you guys seeing closed caption on your Facebook pages, or is that just mine? If that's just me, let me know. Hey, what's up, Fam Bam? What's up, Cynthia? Who else in here? What's up, Melissa? P6, Erica, Marlon. You know, I used to always see people do live, and I used to be like, why are they shouting everybody out? It used to drive me crazy. But I guess, yeah, I get it, because it's still kind of bad because people are actually watching, so you want to acknowledge them. So, hey, Karen, my sister Karen from A Few Good Women. Dorian, what's up, brother? David, Emil, Kenneth Gilmore, what's up, my friend? My preacher friend there. Yolanda Flowers. Hey, Kenneth, I may be preaching a sermon next month. Kenneth, this is for Kenneth Gilmore. Next month, my church, the Avalon Park Community Church here in Chicago, is deeming October Reparations Month. So it's a really big social activist type church. Not necessarily black liberation theology, but definitely social activism. And one of the things we're doing is we're very active in the community. But one of the things we're doing is next month we're going to deem next month Reparations Month, and we're going to preach reparation sermons. So, and that was for Gilmore specifically because Kenneth Gilmore is a kind of deep theological guy. I've watched a lot of his posts and stuff. The brother is heavy. So if you are interested in that, Kenneth, I'll be sure to invite you. Um, and if your church is into that, I don't know if it is, but make October Reparations Month. We preach reparations all the way up until October, reparations for ADOS, or all the way up till November to the election. We can preach reparations for ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. And we can make that like a traditional thing every year. We can preach reparations and show America that this community is owed, and we can do that every October. So, yeah, do that, Kenneth. Share that with your congregation, and if you want to participate, maybe your congregation can do the same thing. Hey, Cynthia, can you share the live in the group? Share it in the group me for me. I'd appreciate it. And also, again, guys, do you see? I'm looking on my phone, and I'm seeing closed caption. I'm seeing what I'm saying coming up on the screen. Do you guys see that on your screen, or is that just my screen? Let me know. All right, so we're gonna get started here in a minute. Let me go grab me a bottle of water. We'll get rocking as soon as I get back. All right. All right. I got my libations. What's up, Arthur Ward, Vice President? If y'all didn't see my live day before, yeah, yesterday we did a press conference in front of our governor, um, JB Pritzker's home, and the police were called on us, and we had a really good time with police. Arthur was there, our VP. Cynthia McDonald was there, our Secretary General, and we had a grand old time. And Arthur got to cuss out a white man. He didn't use a cuss word, but he cussed him out pretty good. So y'all should go see that. It was great. All right, all right. So let me share my screen and just a second. Okay, let me know if y'all can see the screen. Can y'all see my screen? How about now, Arthur? Can you hear now? now. I just pushed the button. Okay. Derek said he can hear me. All right. Okay, good. So, what I was saying was this is the ADOS Chicago presentation, ADOS 101. My name is Marlon Watson, president of ADOS Chicago. Thank you guys for joining us. And we used to do this in person or in public places prior to COVID. And we bring out about 40, 50 people and we'd have a good old time. We used to do them in public libraries because they're free here in Chicago. But now we do them virtually because obviously COVID is a problem. And so this is the same presentation, just at a different platform. And once COVID is done, whenever we can figure out COVID, we're going to start doing them again. But now we have a permanent headquarters. And ADOS Chicago headquarters, ADOS Chicago HQ is 8100 South Dante. That's the Avalon Park Community Church. That's my church, Pastor Anthony Williams. And that's our home now. So we have an office there. And my pastor actually has a reparations ADOS sign on the front of the church. So once we figure out COVID, which probably won't be till next year sometime, we will resume these indoors. But in the meantime, we're going to be doing them here once a week. And we thank you guys for joining us. Whenever you join us, please share the live. Invite your friends to watch it. And share it on Twitter, share it on your Facebook pages. You can actually text the YouTube link out to your friends, or you can text our website to your friends. And it streams live on our website. And our website is adoschicago.org, adoschicago.org. So you can tweet that to your friends that may not have YouTube or Facebook, and they can watch it live from our Facebook, from our website. All right. So again, thank you for joining us. And these are some of the things we're going to cover. We're going to cover what ADOS is. What is that? What is advocacy? Where are we economically? Meaning, where is ADOS economically? How did our economic position happen? And, well, lastly, but definitely not least, we'll cover reparations. All right. All right. So here's a few ground rules. Like I said earlier at the beginning, we used to do this in public pre-COVID or in public places and bring people out. And in that setting, we'd make sure people hold their questions until the end. But today, you can ask all the questions you want. We got Arthur Ward in the chat. We got Cynthia McDonald in the chat. And, you know, they can answer your questions right there. So, somebody just texted me, said it's not showing on my page. All right. Well, but anyway, so if you got questions, you can ask the questions now. And our second ground rule is no curse words. We have some words we deem as ADOS people as curse words, and we don't allow you to use these words in public. If you're talking to us, you have to have a really good reason to use these words. And these words are minority. We don't allow us people to call us minority, particularly politicians. Diversity. That's a word we don't really like. Okay. Black and brown. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with black, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with brown. We just don't like them lumped together. All right. We want to be talked to specifically and individually. People of color. That's one word we don't like. We don't like that word, people of color. Why we don't like people of color is kind of the same reason we don't like the other word, because it's a way to kind of dilute what belongs to us. And people of color, if you don't know, back in the day, in the early 1900s, it was only used to describe us. And it was used to say we aren't white, so we are people of color, which was, descendants of slaves at that time. We were really only the only non-white people here for the most part. And so anything in terms of a set aside or special treatment should come to us. Well, now people is used to describe everybody except for white men and white women. And they cover white women with minority and diversity. All right. And so these are just ways to give people our stuff. And so we reject people of color and we reject women of color. I know, sisters try to jump into that space. But we don't do that at ADOS. ADOS, we don't do the men, women, we don't do that. All right. So these are curse words we don't allow. And if you were at a live presentation of ours in person and you use that, somebody in ADOS is going to get on you. Matter of fact, we had a candidate forum the end of last year, right before COVID hit, and one of the candidates said people of color, and one of our folks, one of our elder sisters, one of our boomers, two of our boomers, told a lady apart, told a little pole lady apart. So, but that politician knows whenever they come to an ADO Chicago event or an ADO event period, not to use people of color. So we got to train them how to treat it. So these are words we don't use. And the reason we don't use it, I'll kind of give you some concepts of why. One reason is because of what's called benign neglect. If you are even a political novice, you know what benign neglect is. Benign neglect is a policy that the Nixon administration administered, and it's basically a way to neglect black people, but without being mean and nasty. Benign meaning nice, and neglect meaning neglect. So benign neglect is a way to neglect you without doing it all in your face. So you don't have to call us niggas. You ain't got to call us all types of messed up names. You don't have to put your hands on us particularly. But if you institute benign neglect policies, that's a way to ignore us or dilute us, or it's a way to ignore us. And diluting policies designed for us is essentially a way to ignore us. And benign neglect back then was words like they would say words like forced busing or stuff like that. These were terms that would hurt. It would kind of hurt white people, but it would mostly hurt black people, and that's what it was designed to do. And so those terms, we look at those terms as benign neglect. We also look at the terms like that as the Southern strategy. It's kind of a new version of the Southern strategy. The Southern strategy is a policy instituted by Democrats. So benign neglect was Republican. That was a Republican type ideal. Southern strategy is Democrat. It was Lee Atwater. It was a Republican too, but it was Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater is a political strategist, and I would play this video, but for some reason it won't play. So you have to go to YouTube and search this. Just go to YouTube and type in Lee Atwater's 1981 interview on the Southern strategy, and he'll explain to you what it is. And the Southern strategy is, and Lee Atwater basically says that you can't use words today like nigger, 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 nigger. You have to use abstract terms like forced busing and states' rights and all these types of things that ultimately does what it's supposed to do, which is harm descendants of slaves. And so these words are words that we consider the Democrats' versions of a Southern strategy and benign neglect, because really the Democrats are the only ones that really hone in on these concepts of people of color, minority, black and brown, women of color, etc. So those are words we reject, and that's why we reject those words. Yeah, Marlon Willis. Yeah, that was Lee Atwater. Marlon Willis said, "Oh, that was him." Yeah, that was Lee Atwater. That was a Reagan strategist who came up with that concept of Southern strategy. And if you search that YouTube video, just go to YouTube, type in Lee Atwater's 1981 interview on the Southern strategy, and he'll explain it to you himself. So again, we restrict these curse words: minority, diversity, black and brown, people of color, and women of color. And if you can think of any other ones that you may think that are benign neglect or Southern strategy types of words to neglect black, to neglect ADOS, or to dilute ADOS, type them in the chat. We may have missed some. So we may have missed some words. So type those words in the chat if you know of any that are used today in the political world that serve the purpose of neglecting or diluting ADOS set asides. All right, so what is ADOS? ADOS is an acronym, and the acronym stands for American Descendants of Slavery. And American Descendants of Slavery is a few things, but we'll let Dr. William Darity explain what it is as it relates to a movement. Yes, be happy, be grateful. BIPOC. I need to put BIPOC on there. BIPOC is another restricted benign neglect Southern strategy-ish word. So I'll definitely add that to to the list. So appreciate that. Don't forget, Cynthia, add that. We got to add that to the list. We got to add BIPOC. And so here is an excerpt from Dr. William Darity. This is his book, From Here to Equality. This is a lot of people consider this the Bible of reparations. It's a really good read. And we use a lot of Dr. Darity's work in our presentations and in our work. And he and Antonio Moore and Yvette Cornell have done things together. So look at this book, check this book out. It just came out the end of last year, or the beginning of this year, actually. But in his book, he tells you what ADOS is as it relates to a movement. So it says a movement blossomed in early 2019, network platforms under the label hashtag ADOS, an acronym for American Descendants of Slavery. This digital campaign asserts that Black Americans, descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, have a unique and exceptional claim on the nation's government for justice. So that's what ADOS is as it relates to a movement. All right, it's a group that says we have a specific claim, us as American descendants of slavery, those who are the children of those who were enslaved in this country. We have a specific justice claim to this country. In other words, this country owes us in a very specific, peculiar way, not attached to anybody else's claim or redress. That's what ADOS is as a movement. But ADOS is also something else. And the movement consists of a bunch of different chapters. ADOS Chicago, which you're watching our presentation now. You have ADOS Atlanta, ADOS LA, ADOS Minnesota, Houston. ADOS chapters all over the country. I just talked to a guy in Hawaii that's about to open up a chapter. So we got ADOS chapters all over the country. And so in that vein, these chapters, we work towards the issue of reparations on the federal level for ADOS people and equity in terms of different set-asides and cutouts for us in our local cities and states. And so that's what the ADOS movement is, that's what ADOS is as a movement. Well, ADOS is also, for those of us who adopt this term, we adopt it as an ethnicity or a lineage. All right? And what's an ethnicity? What's a lineage? The lineage is the fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition. All right? And so that's what ADOS is. It's our lineage, and it's a movement. It's a political movement. And the reason we adopt it as a lineage is for a very specific reason. But first, we're going to do a little word association to try to drive that reason home, okay? And whenever we do this in public, we always get the same response. It's incredible. So let me help drive home why lineage is important. So if you see this guy on my screen, everybody, I'm pretty sure you know who that is. If you know who that is, type it in the chat. If you said Bob Marley, you are correct. That is Bob Marley. All right. Now, what is Bob Marley? What is Bob Marley? And when I ask this question in public, I always get the same answers. It's crazy, particularly for people who have never heard this presentation. Whenever we ask this in public, the answer is always the same. So if you said to the question, who is this? What is this person? We know who he is, but what is he? If you said Jamaican, which 99% of the time people always say he's Jamaican, you're correct. You are absolutely correct. Bob Marley is Jamaican. All right. So who is this guy? Everybody knows who he is, right? Everybody knows this is Michael Jackson. Correct? Well, question is, what is Michael Jackson? And whenever I ask this question, I get the same answer 99% of the time from people who hadn't heard this presentation. They always say he's Black or African American. But the problem is and this is where lineage comes into play. When you saw Bob Marley, everybody knows Bob Marley is black. But when I asked you what is he, everybody said he's Jamaican. Everybody knows Michael Jackson is black. But when I asked you what is he, you said he's black. Well, what's the difference? What difference did you notice? Well, the difference is you, you subscribe a home to uh, Bob Marley, but not to Michael Jackson. Well, you may say, well, if I were to say, I would say African American, which is kind of, it's a home, right? But the problem with that is, if Bob Marley was in America, he could be an African American. But if Michael Jackson goes to Jamaica, he can't be an African American. He can only be, or he can't be a Jamaican American, rather. He can only be black. All right. So what you've just illustrated, or what this example illustrates, is some black people in the world are known as black and they have a lineage or an ethnic or ethnicity, while us, those who descend from American slavery, do not. So when people see us, they say they're black. They just give us a general term. And it's important to have a specific lineage because in the world we live in, lineage is synonymous to a home. It's synonymous to a cultural home. See, here in America, well, let me go deeper into the presentation, and I'll break that down shortly. So, understanding race. So, why do you look at Bob Marley as a Jamaican, but you look at Michael Jackson as a black man? Well, this is why. Because it's a misunderstanding. I believe it's an intentional teaching of a misunderstanding of race and lineage. So this is the way I look at it, and hopefully it can help people understand race and lineage better. So race is the street we all live on as people classified as black. In other words, if I'm in Canada or China, Alabama or Alaska, if I see a person that's a black person, I see somebody from my street. All right. I see somebody from Black Street, you know, whether that person is Jamaican or Nigerian or whatever. If I see them and they see me, we see two black people. We live on the same street, Black Street. That's race. Lineage, on the other hand, is the house we all individually live on that street. So on Black Street, you have Jamaicans that have a home. You have Nigerians with a home. You have Haitians that have a home. Kenyans that have a home. The only people who are homeless on Black Street is who? Us, Black Americans, those who built the greatest country in the world. Why do I say we're homeless? Well, you said we're homeless if you describe Bob Marley as Jamaican, but Michael Jackson is black. You said we're homeless, not me, because you didn't understand race and lineage. Well, ADOS is here to explain race and lineage to people in part. That's part of our mission. And it's so important to have a home culturally because if you live on Black Street and everybody else on Black Street has a home, okay, but you don't, but you live on the street, you're homeless. And if you're homeless on the street, just picture a street full of houses, a typical block, and a homeless person. You still live on the block. You just don't have a home to put your stuff. So you're riding around with a grocery cart full of stuff. Your clothes in your grocery cart, your money's in there, everything else. Your music is in there, your intellectual property's in there, your culture, your food, your art, your science, everything you created, everything that comes from you, from the belly of your community, is in your shopping cart. I need to put a picture on our presentation with a guy, black dude with a shopping cart. Everybody else's stuff is in their home. So Bob Marley stuff is in his home. That's why when you see Jamaican music, when you hear reggae music, you automatically say, "Oh, that's Jamaican." Or when you eat jerk chicken, you automatically associate that with Jamaicans. But if you see hip hop or hear hip hop music, you'll say, "Oh, that's black music." And everybody and their mama can claim it, and they do. Everybody and their mama comes to America and claims everything we created. Why? Because we don't have a cultural home. We're homeless on Black Street. Let me tell you a quick story. I have a friend who visited Korea, and that friend told me that Korea has all types of different music. And one of the types of music they have is K-pop and K-R&B and K-hip hop. That's Korean hip hop, Korean R&B, etc. Well, this particular friend of mine was Nigerian, and my Nigerian friend was talk. We were actually it was me, my Nigerian friend, and and a Nigerian we had just met. It was two Nigerian guys and myself, and they were just talking about their culture. Right? They were talking amongst each other. They had just met, and I didn't know what to say because I'm not Nigerian. And then they started to talk about Korea because both had visited Korea. And my friend said, he said, listen, man, I love Korea, man. They have K hip hop, K-pop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, what's K hip hop? They said it's Korean hip hop. I said, what's K-pop? He says Korean pop. And then his friend, the guy we had just met, went on to say, man, people love Black music all over the world. And I said, no, 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 that's not true. I said, people love ADOS music all over the world. And what I meant was the music they had described, K-pop, K-hip hop, K-R&B, that's our music. That's not Nigerian or Jamaican or Haitian. That's our music. Well, do you know when I said that, I almost damn near have to fight these guys because I wanted hip hop to be ours because we created it. Same with R&B. But see, if you don't have a home culturally, that's what happens. Everybody get to take your stuff. So everybody is trained to say, oh, Black American stuff is every Black person's stuff. But Jamaican or reggae music is Jamaican music. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to have a cultural home. So I hope you get that. It's very important to start claiming your stuff. Hip hop is ADOS music. R&B, that's ADOS music. Blues, jazz, country, every form of music in America that was created by slaves or descendants of slaves. So all that is ADOS music. I don't let people say it's just Black music because it's not. I don't render myself homeless, and I don't want you to after this presentation. All right, so let's get a little deeper into race and lineage. So here's another reason why knowing your lineage is important. Let's talk about it from a public perspective, meaning governmental. And if you're watching this and you hadn't shared it, share it alive. When you share it with the title, Why Lineage is Important. So let's look at lineage from a public perspective, governmentally speaking. Most people don't know that there's a Congressional Caribbean Caucus in our country's House, just like the Black Caucus. All right. Now, with the Congressional Caribbean Caucus, those are Black people. Those are strictly Black folk. There aren't any white Caribbeans in the Congressional Caribbean Caucus. But do you think me as a Black person, do you think I could get some sort of political benefit from the Caribbean Caucus? Would they do advocacy for Black people? Could I get anything from them without their permission? Probably not, right? Okay. There's also a Congressional Nigerian Caucus. Same question. Could I go to the Congressional Nigerian Caucus as a Black person and get anything? Probably not, because I'm not Nigerian. And that's okay, right? Well, there's also an African Immigrant Caucus, and here's a quote from them. Other ethnic groups have a seat at the table and are getting their issues heard. Why not us? That's the African Immigrant Caucus. And as you notice, he said other ethnic groups. Well, let me ask you a question. If I can't access those caucuses, can those people in those caucuses access the Congressional Black Caucus? Of course they can. So it's just like being on that street again. It's just like that music and art and culture we created that everybody that's black can say that's our music. But I can't say their music is mine. Well, it's the same conception here. In the Congressional Black and Nigerian and African Immigrant Caucus, they can get all the advocacy they want from those caucuses. And then they can come and get advocacy from the Black Caucus, Congressional Black Caucus. But I can't access those caucuses. I have a problem with that. Me personally. It's just that it allows everybody to double dip in our resources, and there is no reciprocation. Okay? Let's look at it from a private perspective, meaning private companies and institutions. Have you ever heard of the Midwest Jamaican Corps? Well, now you have heard of it. And it's basically an institution that's designed, a privately owned institution that's designed to give things to Jamaicans, whether it be home down payment assistance, or financial aid and assistance, or resources for this, resources for that. And me, as a non-Jamaican black person, I am restricted from getting assistance from that organization. What about the Nigerian American Professional Association, NAPA? Same thing. And this is just three different entities. There are thousands of them. What about scholarships in America? Do you know, as a black person in America, you can go and get a scholarship from the United Negro College Fund? When the United Negro College Fund was created for Negroes, and the only people who were Negroes were those whose ancestors were enslaved in this country. But every black person now can access the United Negro College Fund and any other scholarships, etc. But I can't go and access the scholarships that are designed specifically for them. And I know if you're new, you're listening and you're saying, "Why am I talking about other black people?" Well, I'm trying to explain to you the difference between lineage and race and why it's so important. As we get further into the presentation, I'm going to talk about white people too. So don't worry your little soul. We're going to get to white folks too. But I hope you understand now why having a lineage is important. It protects your resources. It doesn't allow other people to double dip in your resources and restrict you accessing theirs. All right. So ethnicity is so important, and lineage is so important for that reason, particularly when we start to talk about reparations, which we will talk about here in a second. Now let's look at ADOS by the numbers. And what I mean by that is, ethnically speaking, or as far as lineage is concerned. In Chicago is split up in thirds. It's split up, and this is how everyone describes it: 30% Hispanic, 30% Black, and 30% white. And we always get called the minority in America, meaning like, one of the smallest groups. But in Chicago, that's not the case. Not only because of the Black being a third, just like white and Hispanic, but because those white and Hispanic groups are conglomerations of ethnicities. For instance, if you look at this chart here, it says the main ethnic groups in Chicago include Irish, German, Italian, Mexican, Assyrian, Arab, Bangladesh, Jewish, English, Bosnian, Croatian, Bulgarian, Czech, Greek, Black, and they consider Black an ethnic group, but it's not. Korean, Chinese, Indian, Philippine, Lithuanian, Macedonian, dot, 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 dot. These are all white, mostly white ethnicities. Well, the largest white ethnicity in Chicago is German. It's like 12 to 15% of the city. The largest ethnicity is ADOS, because we make up about 90-something% of the Black group. So we're the largest ethnic group in the city of Chicago, by far. So we're not the minority in Chicago, but we get the least amount of resources. Even with Hispanic is also a conglomeration of ethnic groups. You have Mexicans, you have Puerto Ricans, you have Guatemalans, Costa Ricans, so on and so forth. And it's not a voting block because they don't all vote. about between 30 and 40% of the Hispanic vote went to Donald Trump in the last election, and probably will do the same this election. The ADOS vote is the only vote that's a voting block and it's a captured vote because we vote 90% of the time for Democrats, all up and down the board. All right, so that's just some ideas on and some concepts on lineage and why it's important. So let me show you why lineage is important, even when it comes to how our organizations advocate for us. So the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which is us. We were the only colored people here. But now everybody else and their mothers and their fathers and brothers shoehorn themselves into people of color. So we have to either they have to stop using it for everyone, which ain't gonna happen because we've let them use it already. It's too late. Or we have to reclassify ourselves. Okay. So anyway, so the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which was supposed to be strictly our organization, I want to show you how they advocate. This is a tweet they did back in April of this year. It says, this legislation is a desperately needed first step to helping small businesses owned by, there you have it, people of color and located in underserved areas, which are hardest hit by COVID. All right, that's how the NAACP advocates. Well, let's look at the Black Caucus. Power up. African American lawmakers say the Trump administration, isn't doing enough to help, there you have it, minorities weather coronavirus. That's the Congressional Black Caucus. Well, let's look at the Black Caucus again. 2.8 million immigrants are healthcare professionals putting their lives at risk to take care of their patients. They must all, no matter their immigration status, be included in any COVID relief packages. That's the Congressional Black Caucus. Well, let's look at the Hispanic Caucus. It says around half, 49% of Hispanics say they or someone in their household has taken a pay cut or lost a job, or both, because of the COVID-19 outbreak, compared with 33% of all U.S. adults. The next recovery package must do more for Latino communities. Did you notice a difference there? The Black Caucus said people of color. Then they said minority. The NAACP said people of color. But the Hispanic Caucus says Latinos. And the Caribbean Caucus says Caribbean. And the African Immigrant Caucus says those from Africa. You notice the difference? And people kind of wonder why we can't make it in this country, because everybody is eating our stuff. They get 100% of their advocacy, and then 50% of ours. They get it. I mean, if you can't add, that's 150%. And then 100% of ours, or half of ours, is taken and given to them. So they're operating at 150%. We're operating at 50%. That's why we can't compete, because we don't have a cultural home. And too many of our gatekeepers, per se, those that come before us, too many of them hold on to this concept and have left the gate open. In the military, I'm a military veteran, United States Air Force, and we have a term to describe a person that's not manning his or her duty at protecting the base. If you're supposed to be protecting the base, you're a gate guard, and they give you an M16 and all this authority and the keys to the gate and all this kind of stuff, and you let somebody in without your authority, they call that a dereliction of your duty. It's a dereliction of duty. And that's what we've experienced in the ADOS culture prior to ADOS. A dereliction of duty. We've just let any and everybody into our home and into our culture. Well, ADOS is here to stop that. We're here to, as Antonio Moore says, a co-founder, we're here to put the gate up. And putting that gate up is what's causing so many problems. You may have heard people, if you're kind of familiar with ADOS and this is like your first time hearing an actual presentation, you may have heard, people say, oh, ADOS is divisive and this and that, etc. But the problem is not that we're divisive. Everybody has, as we've just demonstrated, their own culture and their own stuff inside of their culture, which is totally fine. It's just a problem when we do it. Well, the reason it's a problem is because everybody's used to not doing it to us. Here's an example. If you're in a relationship and you've been in that relationship for 20 years, 30 years, and the person you're in a relationship with has never once called you to come to your house. When y'all first got into the relationship, that person would just pop up and you'd love it. You wouldn't have a problem with it. You just love them so much and you just adore them so much that you would just love to see them come to your home without calling. Well, let's say 30, or let's not do 30 years. Let's say 2 years in. And let's say at the second year, you start to have a problem with this person just popping up over your house. And you say, look, man, or look, woman, or whatever. I love you. I appreciate you. But you're going to have to start calling me before you come to my house. And what if this person was just accustomed to coming to your house and they would pick up your phone and just start looking through your phone, like looking at your text messages. And when y'all first started, y'all were just open and you didn't mind. And yeah, go ahead, check my phone. I don't care. But then 2 years in, you said, look, man, or woman, or whatever, you're going to have to stop looking through my phone. And what if this person, when they came to your house, when y'all first started dating, they would just go in your refrigerator. They just come in and open the refrigerator, start cooking food and eating your son's school lunch and your leftovers you got from your favorite restaurant, and you never cared. But 2 years in, you said, look, man, look, woman, or whatever, you're going to have to stop going in my refrigerator and eating my stuff. You're going to have to start asking permission. What would happen? That person would start to have some very serious problems and say, what's wrong with you? Why you got a problem with me doing what I've been doing for the last 2 years? Well, this is what's happened in America today with ADOS. People are upset and bothered and saying we're divisive because we're doing what everybody else does, have a culture. But people aren't used to us doing that, so it's caused a serious problem. Yes, Cynthia. Look, man, in my Chris Tucker voice. Yes, absolutely. That's my best Chris Tucker impersonation, by the way. And so that's what we've seen. And so people say we're divisive, but I just got to tell you something. There's nothing really wrong with divisiveness. No, it's really not. See, the problem with divisiveness. The root word of divisive is division or divide, right? And when it comes to division or divisiveness or divide, what we need to understand is that division is simply a function of math. It's a mathematical function. It's like subtraction. It's like addition. It's like multiplication. Neither of these functions have an emotional value attached to it, and they shouldn't. They're just tools to use in math, right? Well, everybody else in the country understands division, and they understand that it's necessary to use. It's only us that get bothered by the concept of division. But division is not an emotional thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a neutral thing. All right? You use division all the time. When you get your paycheck comes in your name. That's division. That's dividing everybody else. All right? If you have a car and the car is in your mother's name, but you drive the car, it's not your car. You driving it, but if it's in your mama name, it's your mama car. That's division. The key to your home, you only give it to a select few people. That's division. And division is always used to protect. So we have to start to protect ourselves. And we have to start to divide when necessary. And those who don't understand that, well, they just don't understand that. That's not our problem. That's their problem. So just trying to help you understand what we're doing as it relates to an ethnicity and why we're doing it and why it's important. All right. So now that you understand, or hopefully understand, ethnicity, we're going to play called Wheel of Fortune, or it's called ADOS in the House. All right. But before we play the house, I'm going to share something else with you to help drive this point home of why lineage is so important. In America, the country that our ancestors and us and that we've all built, meaning those who were enslaved and their descendants, the richest country on the planet Earth, because of us. The primary wealth of this country was created through unpaid slave labor. In this country, the first black president was not ADOS. The first black attorney general was not ADOS. Now, understand really quickly, if you have a parent who can trace their, or a parent, the ancestors, they can trace their lineage back to American slave plantations, whether you have an ethnicity from another race or culture, you're still ADOS. Okay, I just want to be clear on that. But the first black president in this country we built was not ADOS. The first black attorney general was not ADOS. The first black potential vice president will not be ADOS. The first black potential vice president's chief of staff is black, but not ADOS. The first black president, male president of the Harvard Law Review was not ADOS. The first black female president of the Harvard Law Review is not ADOS. The first black chief of staff and joint chief of staffs of America is not ADOS. The first black president of the Young Democrats is not ADOS. I could go on and on and on and on and on. The first black Supreme Court justice in New Jersey is not ADOS. I could go on and on and on. This is in the country we built. Okay. Now, in the past, we would always applaud that. We would say, hey, man, look what God brought us from the slave's house to the White House. Right? But did they actually bring us from the slave house to the White House? No, we ain't got to the White House yet. ADOS ain't been in the White House as a president. Okay? Now, take me to a black country, whether it be an African or Caribbean country, and show me, because what I just painted for you was a picture of dominance in this country from black people that aren't ADOS. Take me to a black country, Caribbean or African, and show me the dominance that exists from ADOS people. Don't exist. Well, Cynthia just said the only black person that's been to the ADOS is Michelle. No, presidents have always had black women in the White House. They've always had ADOS there. And they played the same role as Michelle in many cases. That's not publicly. So I'm saying that in the country we built, because of the concept of flat blackness, we just have been okay and let everybody fill spots that we should fill when it's not reciprocated. I can't go to an African country or Caribbean country and dominate like that. I shouldn't dominate like that, and I don't want to. All right. So hopefully you get. Yes, Arthur. Sheila Jackson Lee is not ADOS, from what I understand. I don't think she's ADOS. I think she's full Jamaican. So, but if she had one parent that was ADOS, she'd be ADOS, like our Cynthia McDonald, our Secretary General. One of her parents is Jamaican. One of her parents is ADOS. So she ADOS. And you know what's funny about that? In other cultures, from my research, they don't allow that. If you don't have two parents that are from that culture, you ain't them. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? But ADOS, we say, nah, you us. You got one of us. You live this experience in this country. You us. You family. All right. So that's the interesting thing. So, all right. So let's play in the house. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a picture of an ADOS person, or a black person rather. And if that black person is ADOS, I want you to type in the chat "in the house." All right. And in person, when we do this, it's a lot of fun because people actually get to shout it out. So, all right. Oh, Cynthia just said, yeah, my mama said I ain't them. Hilarious. Okay. So, first person, first contestant on In the House. We know who that is. Dr. King and the lovely Coretta Scott King, two ADOS champions. Um, we know. We don't even have to question that. They are absolutely ADOS. And in fact, the term descendants of slaves is one of the terms Dr. King used. He didn't say American because back then there weren't a lot of non-American blacks here. So didn't have to um, focus in on that. But descendants of slaves is one of the terms Dr. King used to use, and contestant number one is In the House, and they are ADOS approved. The next contestant, if you don't know who that is Booker T. Washington. And he's absolutely in the house. The next contestant, W.E.B. Du Bois. And he is in the house. Next contestant, Madam Walker. In the house for sure. Next contestant, who is that? Marcus Messiah Garvey. Is he in the house? No. Marcus Garvey's not in the house. I know we love Garvey. You know, Garvey the man, and we mad at him. He just not ADOS. That's all. That's all. You know, when reparations come, his descendants just don't get none. They get theirs from Jamaica. In fact, Jamaica has said in the event that they get reparations, if you're a descendant of Jamaican slavery, your reparations follow you. So his descendants will get reparations from Jamaica. Bob Sanders said Bob Marley is in the yard. Yeah, that's right. Bob Marley ain't in the house. He in the yard. He in the backyard kicking it with us, but he ain't in the house. That's a good one. I may add that to the presentation. In the house or in the yard. So that's funny. So he is in the yard and not in the house. In the yardie. All right. Who's next? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I love the minister. Just so you know, don't talk about the minister around me. You talk about the minister around me, boy. Look at this. We gonna have some problems. I love Minister Farrakhan. I grew up down the street from the mosque. I used to see them brothers, boy, and man, I used to see them cats in them bow ties. And I was almost gonna be a Muslim until they told me I couldn't eat bologna sandwiches and ribs and stuff like that. And I changed my mind, but I still love them dudes, man. But is Minister Farrakhan ADOS approved? Nah, Minister Farrakhan in the yard. Love him. Reparations come. The brother is Caribbean. So he would get his reparations from the nations that his mother and father are from. But I love the minister so much. If we get some reparations, I give him some of mine. Dark Skin Beauty says he is West Indian. Right, he's West Indian. But if we get some reparations, I give the minister, I give him some of my check. He cool. He all right. He just don't get his own from America. That's all right. Next contestant. All right. Miss Michelle Obama is in the house. Barack Obama is in the yard. Matter of fact, we don't put him in the alley. Michelle Obama is in the house. Barack in the alley. We don't like Barack. Barack is bogus. But Barack his father is Kenyan and his mother is white American. So he is not. Absolutely not. Even affectionately not in the house. Yes, Cynthia. And in the alley. Barack is in the alley. Or the outhouse. Or Massa's house. All right. this person. If you don't know who this is Yvette Carnell. She's a co-founder of ADOS. And she is absolutely 4 times ADOS approved. And you can go find her on YouTube. You can type in Yvette Carnell, spelled just like this, on YouTube, and you can find that sister. And this is the reason we are doing what we do, because the sister got all us amped up and fired up, and that's the homie. Love that sister right there. So go to Yvette Carnell's YouTube page and check out her videos every Monday and Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern or Central Time PM. And you can go to their website, ADOS101.com, to see what it is they do, or we do. So she is in the house. All right, this gentleman right here are ADOS approved 3, 4, 5 times. And this guy to the left is Antonio Moore. He's the other co-founder of ADOS. He's another reason why we do what we do. He and Yvette have gotten all of us fired up. They've ignited a movement in this nation. And we are picking up the mantle that Dr. King unfortunately had to leave behind of going to get our check. And they've ignited that movement. And you can also go find him. If you go to YouTube and search Antonio Moore, his videos will come up, and he does a show every Friday, and sometimes they do pop-up shows, so you'll be able to see those as well. The second gentleman is Dr. William Sandy Darity, and he wrote the book From Here to Equality. So he's also ADOS, and these men are in my house. So this guy right here, if you know one of my favorite friends, or if you're in Chicago, you're probably familiar with this guy. His name is Brian Mullins. He looks Cuban or Indian or something, but he's actually ADOS. This is our brother. He works with us in ADOS Chicago, and he does a lot of great political stuff with us. So Brian is in the house. And the last contestant are these folks. And this is many of the people in ADOS Chicago. And you see myself here, and Antonio, and Miss Doris, and they go Art Ward, the VP. A lot of good folks. Nicole, a whole bunch of folks. Whole bunch of Brian's back there, Miss Cynthia Lane, Winter, a lot of folks here. And this is us at the state capitol. Last year, we went to the state capitol to lobby our bill, our SD bill, House Bill 4260, which makes a special space for ADOS people in Illinois state law. But now we're working on that federally too at some point. We will be at some point. But anyway, that was us there lobbying in Springfield. And we're right there in front of the rotunda. So we had a really good time that day. But everybody on that picture is all the way in the house. Okay, so now, welcome home. If you saw that and you always thought you were just African American and just black, or you always lauded or just adored other ethnicities, and you saw black Jamaican, oh, they're from Jamaica. And you saw black, oh, they're from black Nigerian, oh, they're from Nigeria. And you get excited, which is nothing wrong with that. But you've never been able to get excited about who you were. Now you can. Because you're ADOS. And you built the greatest country on planet Earth. You're the most sought after black person on planet Earth. You're the most mimicked black person on planet Earth. You're the baddest Negro in the land. That's just a fact. Everybody and their mama tries to be like us. Everybody want to be ADOS, but nobody want to be ADOS. But they all mimic us, black, white, Asian, you name it, zebra stripe. They all want to be us, whether it be our music, our art, our intelligentsia. Dr. King inspired the world, whether it be Frederick Douglass or Marcus Garvey, not Marcus Garvey, but Booker T. Washington. You name them. Frederick Douglass, you name them. The Tuskegee Airmen, you name them. We inspired the planet. So we're the baddest Negroes on planet Earth. So hold on to that and protect that. Because if you don't protect what you got or what God gave you, don't be surprised if he give it to somebody else. All right. So welcome home. You are ADOS. All right. And that's what ADOS is. It's a lineage, it's an ethnicity, an identity, and a movement. And so let's get into where we are economically. All right. So this chart you're looking at is the racial wealth inequality gap, and it shows the median household net worth of ADOS people in America versus that of white people in America. And as you see, the projected numbers are, well, at its height, it was around 2007. Black people were worth about 10,000, and white people were worth about 160,000. So it was 10,000 to 160,000 wealth gap. Well, the numbers are projected out to 122 now, but now the wealth gap, white people own about 170,000 at the median, and they're worth about 170,000 at the median, and we're worth $1,700 at the median. Which, said differently, white folk own about $100 trillion of American wealth, and we, black people, own about two. That's pretty sobering, right? Well, how did this happen? Why is there such a big gap? I just talked about how great we are culturally, scientifically, you name it. You name the lane. We're the baddest in the world and in the country many times. Well, why are we so poor in this country? Well, how did this happen? Hickory smoked bacon is not how it happened. Hickory smoked bacon or cotton is how it happened, not hickory smoked bacon. But there is a hickory smoked bacon company named King Cotton. And why is there a company named King Cotton that still exists? I don't know, but it exists. And it comes from a phrase, king, that was created way back in the day, in the 18th, 17th, 1800s. Let me give you a quote from James Hammond, a Southern plantation owner and U.S. Senator. James Hammond said, without firing a gun, drawing a sword, should they make war on us, we could bring the whole world to our feet. What would happen if no cotton was furnished for 3 years? Well, I will not stop to depict what everyone can imagine. But this is certain. England would topple headlong and carry the whole civilized world with her, save the South, meaning America. Now you dare not make war on cotton. No power on earth dares to make war upon cotton. Cotton is king. That's where King Cotton came from. They got that from the center. Cotton is king. King Cotton. Why? Because we supply the world with cotton. And who picked cotton? Enslaved people. Not only did they pick the cotton, they picked the tobacco, they cut the grass, they picked the apples, the oranges, they shoveled the snow, they built the houses, the colleges, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, they built the White House, mapped out DC, breastfed white children, so on and so on and so forth. And this is what created American wealth. Now look at cotton in production and price. In 1833, just in Mississippi, 77 million pounds of, or 70 million pounds of cotton were created. In 1839, excuse me, let me go back here. 1839, 193 pounds was produced. 194, 1849, and 1859 on the eve of the Civil War, 535 million pounds of cotton were produced. In 1833, the price of cotton was about 10 cents a pound. On the eve of the Civil War, the price of cotton was $1.50 a pound. This is just Mississippi. Just Mississippi. And we can see a timeline of our enslavement in this country. From the 1600s all the way to 1942, America practiced active slavery and called it slavery. That's why in 1942, the sitting president had to issue a circular that said, Circular 3591 that made slavery illegal. Well, why did they have to make it illegal if it was already made illegal in 1863 via Emancipation Proclamation? Well, because after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and Lincoln was subsequently assassinated, the president that replaced him, Johnson, took back the 40 acres and a mule that was actually being issued. We hear that term a lot, but that was an actual thing. Field Order 15, General Sherman started to issue 40 acres and a mule to formerly enslaved people. Well, after assassinated, they started to take that land, and then they started to create laws. One of the laws was the Black Codes, and the Black Code said if you don't have a job or if you aren't gainfully employed, it's a felony. And according to the amendment that helped free the slaves, if you America outlawed involuntary servitude unless you had a felony. And the Black Code said that if you had a felony, you could be involuntarily enslaved. And so they would walk up to a black person and say, "Do you have a job?" Black person would say, "Well, no." Well, even if they had a job, the white person would say, "All right, you don't have a job. So now you have a felony, so we're going to put you right back on plantation." And so those people were re-enslaved on the plantations they left. And all the way up until 1942, people were still being enslaved to a large degree. This is why they had to issue the circular 3591 to make slavery illegal again. All right. So what's the problem? Why do we have so many issues in the black community? Well, it's that wealth gap we just talked about. All that wealth that was created but passed down to white folk, we were never given an opportunity to use it and grow it in the benefit of our communities. And W.E.B. Du Bois said, being poor is hard, but being a poor people in a land full of dollars is the bottom of hardship. Well, this is an issue all across the country. The report called The Color of Wealth, created by William Darity and Dr. Hamilton, did a breakdown of ethnicities as it related to wealth. And here in Los Angeles, you can see the first column. The U.S. blacks, ADOS, had a median net worth of $4,000, while black immigrants had $72,000. Latin, $3,500. Whites, $350,000, and Asians, $298,000. Same thing in Miami. ADOS, $3,700. Black immigrants, $12,000. Latin, $28,000. Whites, $100,000. Same in Boston. U.S. blacks, ADOS, $8, not 80 or 800 or 8,000, but $8. Black immigrants, 18,000. Latin, 4,000. Whites, 25, 250,000. U.S. blacks in D.C., 3,500. Black immigrants, 3,000. It's interesting. And I suspect the reason for that is because they had a Marion Barry, who actually did legislative things for black people. That's what I suspect. But that's just my theory. Also in D.C., whites 280,000, Asians 428,000. This is all over the country. Here's a chart Antonio Moore created that tells that same story just in a different way. The top chart here or the top of the chart are ultra elite people who are worth 6 million or more. These are folks who go to Harvard and legacy schools or do legacy building.com startups. And it's less than a few thousand black families in that strata. Well, in the elite strata, that's people from 1.2 to 6. It's less than 340,000 blacks in that family. In the good strata, net worth of $500,000 to less than 750,000 in that strata. And the average, all the rest of us are there and below. And this chart is everything we just talked about showed in a different way. The bottom half, as you see in this highlighted area, ADOS households is worth less than $1, and it's actually negative 4.4%, which is, I forget, maybe 300 billion. I forget exactly what it is, but it's a large negative number. Well, the wealth gap is expressed here in the city of Chicago more than anywhere else in the country, according to several social scientists. Right here it says, this is an NPR News, Chicago owns America's widest racial gap in economic mobility. Here's a chart that shows breakdown of poor residents within races and their income below poverty level in Chicago. This turquoise or purple line here is our black families in Chicago, and the green one is Illinois. And as you can see, we kind of lead the way there. Here's another breakdown. This is just showing just Chicago in general. We lead the way there as well. Rod Shetty, a Harvard economist, says, for white Americans, achieving the American dream is like climbing an incline ladder. If you've climbed up in one generation, that's basically where you're going to start the next generation, and then you climb up further. But for black Americans and black men in particular, it's like being on a treadmill, where even after you've climbed up in one generation, there are tremendous structural forces that make it highly likely you're going to fall back down into the next generation. And then you have to make the climb all over again. Look at black male employment or unemployment in the city of Chicago, and this is in 2014, so it's exponentially worse now. This blue bar is showing whites at 7% unemployed, black men, 21%, not in the labor force, which people don't talk about. It's 39% for whites and 52% for black men. And not in the labor force, well, unemployment means those who are like actively getting unemployment and actively seeking jobs. Not in the labor force means those who just said, forget it. Okay. And all of that, what it equals is, in part, large part, is black male incarceration. So back in 2014, I believe, or 15, there were 745,000 incarcerated black men. And that was more than India, Argentina, Lebanon, Canada, Japan, Germany, Finland, Israel, and England all put together. And in fact, there are more black men in America incarcerated than there are women all around the globe. So take a look at American incarceration rate per 100,000. White women, 129 per 100,000. Black women, 332 per 100,000. White men, 919. Black men, 5,500. And black working age men, 8,900. Working age is when you're in the prime of your life, from 18 to 35. And when black men get incarcerated, black women get evicted. Eviction rates for black women on par with incarceration rates for black men. Coincidence? Nah. So this is another way to look at the wealth inequality gap. Here is a median household net worth by race and household income quintile. In the first quintile, the first column, those who make more than 120,000. For whites, their median household net worth is 518,000. For blacks, 262. Those who make between 75,000 and 121,000. The median for whites is 200,000. The median for blacks is 83,000. Those who make between 1,000 and 75,000. The median for whites is 100,000, 112,000. The median for blacks, 22,000. Those that make between 26,000 and 48,000. The median for whites, 61,000, and the median for blacks, 7,600. And those that make less than 26,000, the median for whites is 18,000, and the median for blacks is 200. Here's another way to look at it. Median household net worth by race and employment status. Full-time employed, white median is 144,000. The black median, 11,000. Out of labor, 75,000 for whites, 1,700 for blacks. Unemployed, 55,000 for whites, 1,300 for blacks. Look at it by education. Post-college, 450,000 for whites, 140,000 for black. College, 268,000 white, 70,000 black. Some college, 135,000 white, 18,000 black. High school, 118,000 white, 6,000 black. Less than high school, 82,000 white, and 2,700 black. Even with health, health is wealth. Far left side of the chart, you'll see those who are poor have more stress, more worry, more physical pain, more sadness, more anger. And the further down you get, or the higher you get into income or wealth, the less you experience in these things. Right here in the city of Chicago, in Inglewood, the median age is, the median age of death. The average age of death is 65. And in Lakeview, the average age of death is 90. And as you could guess, Lakeview is the white part of town, and Inglewood is the black part of town. Dr. William Darity, speaking at Brown University, says the wealth gap is the single most important indicator of structural racism. All right, so what's the solution? What is the solution? Well, let's figure out what the solution is not. People say, well, you just got to get an education and you can get, you can live the American dream. And we've heard that a lot in the 80s and 90s around the Cosby era. As a matter of fact, this is what they projected to us on television. They showed us Cosby and they showed us a different world and all these erudite college black folk. And this is what we were supposed to strive to, because they were showing us that it was possible. Well, we just looked at the data, and even educated black folk are in worse conditions than educated white folk, significantly so. Well, what about do for self, capitalism, black capitalism? Let's see. There's a study called Not for Lack of Trying, American Entrepreneurship in Black and White. And what it does is it did a study to see how black entrepreneurs compared to white entrepreneurs and Hispanic entrepreneurs, and why black entrepreneurs kept failing. And what they discovered is, here's one of the things they discovered. We find black Americans to show an above average propensity to start a business, while white Americans are less likely to engage in business startups. Isn't that interesting? In other words, we have a better mindset about business. We try harder, right? Here's another snippet of that study. Our results also show that even after controlling for both socioeconomic and perceptual variables, black Americans are still more likely to start a business than white Americans. In other words, even if you're poor, you still try to start more businesses than white folk. We start twice, I think, one times as many as whites, and one and a half times as many as whites, and one time as many as Hispanics, or something like that. Here's something that Wallstead and Korlisky, if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, all right. This is something they discovered. Wallstead and Korlisky, I know I'm butchering that, who investigated the attitudes towards education in and knowledge of entrepreneurship of black youth. Using results from a national survey, their study found that black youth to exhibit a stronger desire to start businesses than white youth, to want more entrepreneurship taught in their schools than white youth, and believe successful entrepreneurs have a responsibility to give back to their communities. Isn't that something? We always talk about our young kids and all they want to do is buy Jordans. But oh my God, the social scientists say they are better entrepreneurs than other white kids, other kids in America, and they want to give back. They have a concept of reciprocity. So why do they keep failing? Because of what the study showed, not for lack of trying, but for lack of capital and access to resources in other areas. Which essentially means their ancestors' wealth that should have been given to them wasn't. And they can't make it without it. All right. This chart showed in 2015, total number of black-owned businesses in America was 2.5 million, while 96% of them didn't have any employees. Okay. Here's something else we do more than anybody. This is a snapshot from Pew Research Center. Who reads more? Well, women read more than men. 69% for men, 82% for women. But black people read more than white people and Hispanics. Hispanics read 67%, whites 76%, blacks 81%. We done it all. We start more businesses. When you control for income, we save more than white people. We're more conservative. We're more enterprising. We read more, but we still can't make it. In this clip, I'm not going to play because you won't be able to hear it. But this is Dr. King right before he was assassinated, saying that in America, when white peasants came to this country, they were given land and land grant colleges to mechanize the land, and county agents came out to actually teach them how to farm the land. And black people weren't given anything. And in fact, those white people were able to fund those things by the labor of enslavement that our ancestors were forced to give this country. But America gave black people nothing. And Dr. King says, in this campaign, meaning when we go to Washington this time, he said, we're going to get our check. Homeless, I am homeless. ADOS says, Marlon, can you put a link for the Not for Lack of Trying study? I can, but it'll be easier if you just Google Not for Lack of Trying and then put comma study and it'll come up. You can pull it up right there. That'll be a lot easier for you. So Dr. King said, for us to make it in this country, we gotta get our check. We gotta get our 40 acres. We gotta get our reparations. All right. And as these studies that we just covered, as they show exactly what Dr. King always said. Dr. King said that it's a cruel just to tell a man to pull himself up by his bootstraps when he doesn't have any boots. All right, so what's the solution? One is, well, I got number 2 here, but number 1 is reparations. That's the first solution. Second solution, well, and in addition to that solution would be demand for local equity. So in other words, reparations will close the wealth gap. That's the down payment on justice. And to maintain this closure, you need local equity, meaning in your cities, states, and counties, you need a commensurate amount of fair share of resources, jobs, contracts, school funding, etc. And at the base, reparations would be a $12 trillion price tag, according to Dr. William Derry. And that's essentially for 35 million ADOS people in America. And that's essentially $300-some thousand for each person in the form of direct payments and a portfolio of other things, part for buying homes and grants for buying homes and grants for buying financial products. It could be a portfolio of different things. But that is what would close that racial wealth gap. And that's the down payment on justice and the local piece where you get a fair and commensurate amount of state and local resources that would help keep it closed. And so that is just about the presentation. And that's what ADOS is working on. Apart from lineage, we're working on reparations from the federal level, meaning reparations should come from the federal government and not some local piecemeal so-called reparations initiatives that we see now. We reject those. But on the federal level, we should get reparations. And on the local level, we should get equity. So anything you see related to reparations on a local level, tell your state representatives and your local officials that that is not reparations. It's equity, which is the reasonable service of your state. Your state should give you contracts and school funding. That's what they should do. And so on the national level, ADOS around the country is working on reparations federally. Well, locally, ADOS chapters are working on local initiatives. And one of the ones we're working on here in the state of Illinois is we're working to get the executive order for Black Illinois citizens signed by our governor. It's something we're working on with Representative State Rep LaShawn Ford, Pastor Anthony Williams, and several other activists and churches in this community, a couple of different state reps. And essentially what it does is it works towards giving us a fair amount of resources. It allows us to meet with all of the agency heads and the governor himself if he signs it. But we're having a difficult time with him to get him to sign it. And so we need your help. So you can help us by going to itshardbeingblack.info. Itshardbeingblack.info to sign that petition. And you can also donate there too. We would really help. That would really help us do what we, because everything we do it out of pocket. And we created the website because Governor Pritzker said in a press conference after George Floyd was murdered that it's hard being Black. And I know we have to do something about it. And we've been at him since this summer trying to get him to do something about it. But for whatever reason, he refuses. So we got to keep pressuring him. We got to hopefully embarrass him to sign it because he just refuses to sign it. In fact, we went in front of his house yesterday to do a press conference, and the police were called on us. So the governor called the police on us. I suspect it was him. Somebody called. But you can go see that interaction on my Facebook page if you scroll down to yesterday. But this is the kind of work we got to do to get this done. We got to get this done on a local level so our community can eat just like every other community. And so go to itshardbeingblack.info. Check out that executive order. Sign it, that petition, and donate to us, to our cause, so we can continue to do what we do. All right, and here are a few of our websites where you can get in touch with us. ADOSchicago.org. itshardbeingblack.info. You can also go to IllinoisADOSequity.org. That's our local state PAC. And you can also go to ADOS101.com. That's the main ADOS site. And if you want to help, again, you can Cash App us at Illinois ADOS Equity, Illinois ADOS Equity, or $ Illinois ADOS Equity. Or if you have Venmo, @ Illinois ADOS Equity, @ Illinois ADOS Equity. Or again, you can go to ADOSchicago.org or IllinoisADOSequity.org and hit those donate buttons. Or you can go to It's Hard Being Black and hit the donate button as well. And if you go to those sites, when you hit it, it'll say $25 in the box. You don't have to. You can change that number. You can donate whatever you want. You can donate 25 cents, or you can donate $2,500. Now, if you donate $2,500, I'm gonna make you an ADOS shirt myself. I'm a hand stitch it, and I'm gonna put the wording on there myself. I'm gonna do it all handmade, and I'm gonna bring it to you personally. But we appreciate the donations and help you give us. And that is the presentation. So thank you for joining us. Get in touch with us if you're in Chicago. Let's work together. Let's work on these initiatives. If you are a person that enjoys church services or church sermons, next month is Reparations Month at my church, the Avalon Park Community Church, with Pastor Anthony Williams as the senior pastor. And I'll be putting out some advertisements here within the next, probably likely tomorrow, that'll have all the whole month planned out for Reparations Month. We're going to be preaching reparations sermons through the month of October, all the way up until the election, and it will make this a monthly thing every year throughout infinity. The Reparations Month is the month of October, the month before the presidential election, just to remind America and keep them on task that this is what you owe this community. And even after they pay us, we're going to do Reparations Month just to remind them to never do it again. And so if you want to see that, again, you'll go to Avalon Park Community Church Facebook page or website, and it'll be streaming live on my page as well next month. And I may actually give a lesson one of those Sundays. So stay tuned. You might see me preaching. So thank you again. I appreciate you. Share the word, spread the word, and if you're ADOS, let's get to work. Bob Sanders says he can't find the report. If you're talking about the not for lack of trying, just as a matter of fact, let me go back to that slide and see if I can get the economists' names. Yeah. So not for lack of trying, comma, American entrepreneurship in black and white. And just screen that page right there, Bob. And go put put not for lack of trying plus American entrepreneurship in black and white plus M. Manetti and P. Collinger. Those are the scientists that did the study. So Google that and I guarantee you'll find it. That's how I found it. So again, that's the presentation, you all. We appreciate you. Let me log off the screen here. Let me go back to my regular screen. And thank you guys for joining. Just a second. All right, so maybe y'all can see me again. All right, so thank you again. Did you find it, Bob? Did you find the? I see your thumbs up there. Did you do the study? If you can, again, go back through this presentation and look at that slide, and you'll see the name of the study and the scientists who did it, and you should be able to see it. You should be able to find it. That's the best way to find it. So thank you, guys. Appreciate you a whole lot. Remember, next month is Reparations Month. And we're working with the Progressive National Baptist Convention now, ADOS and PNBC. And the PNBC is Dr. King's denomination. We're together now, working on social justice issues, namely reparations and black local equity. And I hope to get those guys involved in this as well. But we're definitely doing it at my church. So look out for that. Thank you. Talk to you soon.